the ultimate outcome after, days and days of them communicating back and forth was the only solution was to end humanity and mankind.
If you do not start using it, your competitor or competitors are going to. And it is going to allow them to far surpass you in everything.
So if that doesn't scare anybody, I don't know what
Yeah.
will. Yo, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to Life by the Horns, where we boldly tackle life's terrain. Once again, back at it. We got Blake along with Dustin Lundy. Really stoked to have you guys today and tuning in. This one's going to be a fun one. There's so many things going on in the world in regards to marketing, growing businesses, AI, and I think specifically I'm excited because we want to talk today about how AI can benefit small businesses and the automation around it. So, man, I'm eager to hear your thoughts. I'm excited for you to sort of kick this one off because I know this has been on your mind for quite some time. But talk to me, man. What are your thoughts, initial thoughts on AI, anyways?
Well, I mean, I wish I would have tapped into its power sooner. I mean, that's for sure. I think when and to be fair, when we're referencing AI for today, we're really more talking about AI over the last year. Not to be confused with the AI that's been out for a really long time, but no, man, we started getting wind of it and people were using it, and I just thought it was just another tool and kind of just avoided it. And members of our team at BestLyfe, they were using it and was getting kind of some negative feedback about the quality of information it was given back to them. So again, I just kind of held it at my side, and then finally, one day, a team member encouraged me to utilize some of the prompts that she had created for one of our other brands, and man, I was blown away. Like, I couldn't believe that something like an interface that is so simple had such incredible outputs. And then from there, I mean, it sounds kind of like a silly thing, but I was like, man, what else can this thing do? And so I was asking it questions, and it's all about specificity, inside of the prompts and what you're doing. But was asking it questions for my stepson, like, hey, if I'm a 19-year-old guy trying to grow muscle, and I've only got $100 grocery budget per week, please provide me with a meal plan for 3 meals per day plus 2 snacks. And it created the meal plan. And then I was like, all right, now provide me with the list of ingredients that I need to get from the store. And it did. And I wasn't specific enough. And then I was like, no, I need like actual like sizes. So, how many pounds of beef, et cetera. And it did. And then I asked it to create the recipes for it. And like it did all this amazing stuff. And I'm like, man, why are people not using this more? So, and then from there, I mean, it's evolved greatly and it's super fast. And there's so many different providers. But I think it is an incredible tool that can help you both in your business and professional or personal. So, what do you think?
Yeah, man. I mean, I I'm still in my infancy stage, I would say, testing out the AI tools. The one specifically, and I think you're referring to is things like ChatGPT and Google Gemini. Um, Man, I think if you're a business owner, or even just a solopreneur, or you're tasked with like tedious content writing for whatever it might be your job, it's definitely a tool that I would check out because it'll save you a bunch of time and a bunch of effort having to come up with your own ideas, thoughts, and putting pen to paper. But like specifically with AI tools that we use, um, how do you think small businesses or even larger businesses, how do you think that they can benefit the most from using tools like these?
I mean, I think one of the best benefits right out the gate is just streamlining repetitive tasks. So, I mean, there's so many things between like data entry, customer service. I mean, there's so many different things that AI can do to make you more efficient. And I mean, even something that I've definitely been focusing on lately, it's, what tasks are members of the team doing that are repetitive in nature that I've already got SOPs for that I can then basically build a GPT out and have it do these things for them and at much greater scale so that team members are doing a lot less tasks and doing a lot more personalized things and strategizing a lot better. And then beyond that, like it just helps improve accuracy with things. I mean, I know people probably don't think of something that's as simple as Grammarly as AI, but it is. And I've been using it for years. And, you type up an email or you're, doing something on your phone really, really quickly. And in my head, it was all written correctly. But, inside of my phone or inside of my computer, there was some sort of errors there, or there was a better way to put something. So it definitely helps with the accuracy. There's tools that are out there now that, based off all the data that a business is, consuming and keeping track of. Well, I mean, it's a lot. I mean, businesses are paying data analysts like big time bucks to just look at data and give information. Well, with AI and the correct engineering, you can have it do all that for you. And now you're not having to invest in, such a large investment in people. But I mean, there's so many things like enhancing like the customer experience side of things. And people are like, well, how can AI do that? We've been interacting with smart chatbots for years already that have been, using AI in order to pay attention to commonly asked questions, what we say consistently in return and say like, hey, so I could start typing something in like, hey, I would like to rent a, and immediately, because it's used to seeing things that people are saying, it's like, oh, you would like to rent a, whatever product. And it starts giving information on how to do that. I mean, how I interact with it with my bank consistently, sometimes it annoys me, but I mean, for the most part, I'd rather deal with AI in a chat, like to get a refund from Amazon than I would to get on the phone with somebody there, if you even could. So, I mean, I think there's just a ton of benefits. And I think one of the best things, again, is just reducing repetitive tasks and cumbersome things, and then being able to take that investment and put it into really, really good quality people and have them focus on like things that really move the needle inside of a business instead of just the glue that holds it together.
Yeah, I mean, I think I 100% agree with you, and I think that the challenge is with AI. There's a lot of misconceptions, and a lot of businesses I think are scared to implement AI into their business, and I think part of that is because they're taking away that human element, and their thought or belief is that how can a bot do or communicate with the prospect or a client the way that I would. Um, and you'd be amazed because I think when it's set up properly, not only can it do it one to one with that prospect, but it can do 1 to 1,000 at the very exact same time with all those different prospects at the very exact time. So whereas, it would take you probably hours or days to communicate with those 1,000 plus prospects, but having an AI bot that's properly configured, I think can do all that tedious work for you. Do you find that there, other than businesses or people being skeptical using AI in their business, do you think there are any other misconceptions that people have about AI?
Yeah, I think there are, but to touch on your point, about this chat thing that you were just mentioning, years ago we implemented it in one of our businesses, and I was super hesitant to do so because I just didn't think it was going to work well. But I was paying attention to like our administrative manager who was overseeing the team who was responding to these chats. And consistently, we were having to come behind the team members and say, no, 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 this is the actual policy. Or no, 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 I would say it like this. Or you need to capitalize this and punctuate things here. And we were doing more babysitting and hand holding than anything. And I mean, the reality was we just had to take the level of training that we were giving them, put it in tide of AI, and then that was all she wrote. Like it could do things for us. So, I mean, it's just an investment in technology versus people, but it made it a lot easier for them. But yeah, I mean, some of the biggest misconceptions, and I think reasons that people are hesitant I mean, there's a fear of job loss for sure. Like that's a reality. There's a fear of job transformations, which I mean, candidly, we already see. I mean, there was a period of time in which, I mean, every piece of anything that we ever wrote was from a person. And to write things really, really well, that takes a long, long period of time. And so there's high cost involved with that. Now, because all that information is readily available online everywhere, and AI has said information, now we're doing a lot more prompting and editing and using strategy from what we're looking at, and it helps with writer's blocks and so many things. So jobs look a little bit different, and from like a data entry standpoint, and some of those kind of things I mentioned. Um, yes, some of those jobs may not be as important, but I think one of the things that people need to remember is like if you go back, say hundreds of years ago, and when people had all sorts of problems, right? And if you would have said like, "Hey, we're going to have vaccines to fix this, and we're going to have air conditioning, so you're not so hot, your life expectancy is going to be longer. We're going to have these like boxes that display really cool shows and stuff so you can watch things mindlessly. And we're going to give you these, personal devices to walk around and call people instead of sending telegrams or, walking a million miles to go see them. People would be like, wow, if we had all that, the world would be perfect and we'd never have to do anything. But I think what people have to remember is like every single time we've had a new invention that has fixed a problem or made something better, it's created more problems and more jobs to solve those new problems. So although AI is going to be doing incredible things, and hopefully just incredible things, for us, now and in the future, I think that it's also going to develop a lot of other opportunities for people, and skill sets are just going to have to change. So, and I mean, like with any technology, I think some of the other misconceptions are that it's extremely complex, and on the back end, yes. But as far as user interfaces, no, it's actually fairly simple to use. And maybe they're thinking it's going to be extremely high cost. Not really. It's actually extremely inexpensive. But I mean, I would say those are some of the biggest misconceptions about it. And I think a lot of people think that it's only for like large businesses and enterprises. I think people on their personal level should be using it, and small businesses definitely should as well.
Yeah, awesome, man. I think yeah, you hit the nail on the head. I think yes, AI will come in and replace a lot of existing jobs or positions, but like you said, it's definitely going to create new problems, where it's then going to create more opportunities. Um, so with businesses specifically, right? Let's say you've got a guy that's not using any AI whatsoever or very minimal, right?
Yeah. Yep.
What tool or tools would you recommend he or she sort of begin with to kind of dip their toes in the water, to start implementing into their business and help take a lot of those painful tasks away from them?
I mean, there's a lot of really great ones, but I would say at probably the most basic level, I would just go to ChatGPT and create a free account. The paid one is better, but create a free account and just interact with it. All you're doing is having a conversation. So ask it questions. And as you're asking it questions, you'll probably realize that the information it's spitting back is potentially very vague. One of the best things to do, whether it's teaching a person, or having a conversation with somebody or training them, or in this case, AI, you need to be super specific with what you want back. So you could go in there and let's say you're trying to plan a date night with your spouse and you just said, hey, what are 10 restaurants around me for dinner? And it's just going to be super vague and find 10 around you. You may have to input your address or whatever, but it's going to find 10, in the city that you're in. But they're going to be all over the place. It could be Papa John's, Long John Silver's, a steakhouse, you name it. But then if you're like, no, I don't want fast food. What are 10 restaurants that have a Google rating of 4.5 stars or above that have an emphasis on American food, specifically steaks, and have an average wait time of less than blah on a Friday at 6 o'clock? Now you're going to get back some very specific information that is going to address that question. And I think one of the big challenges early on with people using it was just they were, again, very vague in their inputs. And so they got very vague outputs and they just walked away from it. But I would start there. And then from a practical standpoint inside of businesses, if you have, and I hope you do, SOPs or playbooks in place already, what I've started to do with all of those is take that information and build GPTs so that, basically it has the framework of what is needed. And then with that, I just ask it simple questions like, create this for me and then 5 variants, blah, blah, blah. And then bam, there's the output. And what's crazy is there were tasks that I used to do years ago, like creating, dream buyer avatars and stuff. And if you did it right, would literally take a couple of days to a week to do all the research, to see all the questions people are asking inside of forums, and to get really, really granular. And it wasn't but maybe a month or two ago, I did that same thing with ChatGPT. And instead of having a document that was, 4 pages long, it was now 28 pages long of information that was so granular and specific. Everything we were now writing was so much better. And I'm like, man, this is cool. And to others, it might be like, well, that just sounds ridiculous. But you could literally can take so many things. Like what I was talking about data analysis before, like take a list of your customer set over the last 5 years and dump it inside of here, and ask it to find all the commonalities, of the top 20% of people who are doing business with you. And before that was tons of spreadsheets and tons of time. Well, it's just an info dump and then it has outputs. So that's where I would start. If I were somebody, and there's dozens and dozens of other great tools out there, but just start getting familiar with it. That's what I would say. And then from there, do one test project. Find one thing inside of your business that you think this can help with. Do a test project with it, and then from there, over time, just start building out through your business.
So you would start with GPT over like a Google Alexa?
Yeah.
Oh man, no, I heard a funny story about my friend's grandma who they gifted her an Alexa for Christmas or something. Kind of showed her how it worked, and then she could save her credit card information, all that sort of stuff, which is pretty dangerous for her because she's a serial shopper. And
Yeah, that could be
and like
scary.
2 days later, I think she had something like 12 or 13 Amazon packages because she didn't know how to use it properly. So she just started ordering a bunch of stuff, but she didn't mean to. She was just trying to like check it out, like ask the Alexa about like certain products, and then little did she know she was actually ordering products.
Nice.
Yeah, so I thought that was a pretty funny story.
That is funny. No, that's super funny, man.
So let's go back to a more not serious topic, but like how, like, are there any examples or anything that you can share specifically about maybe us or a small business that that has successfully used AI and automation to grow their business?
Yeah, and honestly, man, I'd like to probably take a step back before you even get to the AI to explain just the importance of technology. So we work with a lot of service-based businesses, and I see them. I mean, some are just completely adverse to technology altogether, and some are okay with it. But from a practical standpoint, about 10 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, I remember getting the opportunity to go inside of a business in a management role and open up a new location for a period of time. I had to train, and I was training at an office that they had processes in place, which was good, but everything was paper, manila folders, schedules were done on whiteboards. Everybody had a computer, for email and various things, but I mean, we were faxing. It was nuts, man. And as a young guy, I'm looking around and I'm like, guys, what if somebody comes in here and erases our scheduling board? They're like, oh, we'd be fucked. I'm like, okay, well, that's not good. And so they started taking a picture of it every day just in case. And then I'm like, well, what if somebody came in and just like threw all the files away? Oh, I don't know. I'm like, well, that's terrible. Like you have to have contingency plans. So I trained there for like a couple of weeks. Then we went to go open up our new operation. And because we were a little ways away, I'm like, man, maybe I got a little bit more latitude to do things differently. So we started moving away from the files and everything and just moving to files inside of G Drive. And it was just much easier to find things. And then slowly but surely, we took over more and more stores. And then we had an opportunity to open up a location really far away. And we were about 6 hours away. So I wouldn't see our director except for maybe once every couple of weeks. And I was just so frustrated with constantly having to order toner and paper and all this stuff for these backup copies. And then our team just had one screen that they were working on all the time. We were still doing the whiteboard deal. And I'm like, you know what? There's technology out here. There's time for it. It's time to change. So, and I don't know what the program was, but we adopted some scheduling program for all of our installers so that we could see where they were on the map because it'd follow them around on their phone. So we'd know if they were, where they were supposed to be, if they weren't. And if for whatever reason we couldn't get in touch with them, we could at least give customers ETAs. We then got rid of all our filing systems. We still had to compare like contracts and stuff to what we had sent over to the partner that we were working with. So I just said, you know what? Why don't we just get everybody 2 monitors? We'll get rid of the printers. We're going to get rid of all this excess toner and everything. So we made a small investment in technology, and like our break even point was about 3 months. So after about 3 months, the decision, since we weren't buying toner and everything, paid for the monitors, and it just made our team more efficient. And I remember our director came down and he was like, who the fuck gave you authorization to do this? I'm like, no, hear me out. And I gave him the breakdown. He was still super pissed. I think it's probably because it wasn't his idea and I didn't ask for permission. But what it allowed our team to do was work at such a quicker rate and remotely if they needed to, that we could spend less time in the office and more time with customers and more time with the primary partner that we worked with. Which in time, what that meant was that we weren't doing all these cumbersome repetitive tasks. So we were building relationships. And when the company ended up getting bought out, they came down to our market there, and then the one that was in Atlanta, and they were like, "Why is it completely different?" They were like, "The rapport with all of the stores that you guys work with up there is not super great. It is incredible down here. What's the difference?" Like, the difference is we're not spending time doing menial tasks. We're spending time doing things that move the needle, which was build relationships. And they were like, "Well, this is great." So, and then fast forward now that we have AI, it's the same concept. Like, how can you take something to power up your team and give them tools so they can focus on things that are more important? So, like a real thing that we're doing here. I mean, we're literally working on it right now. This, a cold outbound email strategy, to help generate leads at a faster rate that's still extremely personalized, takes way, I mean, probably as far as time's concerned, reduces our time by 1,000 times. And so we can spend more time as far as strategy goes, focusing on specific avatars, who we want to target, you know, aggregating information and making sure it's correct, and then having a lot of personal touch points through the process. And that's just one thing. So it gives us much greater and more personalized reach. Some things that I'm working on right now are content creation specific. So, man, I love putting together ads, but it takes time. But with these incredible brand voice guides that we've created for businesses that we work with and for ourselves, and then these dream avatars, by combining these things inside of GPTs with the correct prompts, like I can literally spit out short form, long form variations of it, speaking to company core values, trust signals, all these different things with 40 different headlines ranked from highest click through rate to lowest click through rate. And people are like, "Oh, that sounds like you're cheating." No, what it allows us to do is take, data that's already out there, apply it to what we're doing, get things faster. And for people that we work with, all it's going to mean for them is we're going to be able to scale the ad efforts, not their cost, but scale the amount of content that we can put out for them that's in line with what they're doing and drive a much higher result. So when we used to sit here and be like, "Oh, 5x returns are good, 7, 8, 10, et cetera," inside of certain platforms, I mean, when we can scale what we're doing, we're going to be able to help people get 15, 20, 30x returns at no additional cost to them. And that's because we can focus on strategy and content creation and not manual tasking.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is just the time factor, right? Time is money. And I think if you can find some way to streamline every single process within your business, or like 90% of it through using AI, man, I mean, imagine the amount of hours as the business owner you're able to put back into the business to actually grow. Like, one of the tools that we were using for a while that I loved was Apollo, right? And I think, like, just to use this as an example, let's say, you've created a product, that plumbers can use, and you live in LA or Atlanta, whatever it might be. You've created this brand new, unique um, sewer snake, whatever that plumbers can use, right? And that's your target audience is plumbers, right? And you want to sell this product directly to plumbers. Now, if you were to go to Google or go to the Yellow Pages or go to whatever and try to find all the plumbers within your area that you would service, dude, that would take you days. Plus, you wouldn't even have all the information that you need, right? I mean, you might not even have the decision maker. You'll probably have the assistant or whatever it might be. So it takes you days, and that information probably isn't going to be the best information. Whereas if you could use an AI tool like Apollo, you could configure it to where you can target your exact location. You could target specifically plumbers in that location and ones that meet a certain criteria. And within 5 minutes, you've got a whole list of potential leads that you could create for yourself. It's insane.
I knew a guy last year that I was talking to, and he had put together basically a team to scrape information and paid them for a year just to gather information in the Southeast on companies that fit the criteria for his customer set. And he spent $250,000. And I was like, bro, I got a tool that you could have spent $100 and one person in a month's worth of work to get you all that, have it aggravated with verified email addresses, to your point, key decision makers, not the phone number to the business. And he was pissed. But but there are really great tools. Just people I think are adverse to, or adverse to change. So they just do it the way that they know how. And I get you don't know what you don't know, but I mean, ask people. But no, that's just crazy, man. That's crazy. And I will say this too, because I get asked this question from our team and some leaders sometimes here that if we start relying so heavily on AI, like how is it going to impact the team? And going back to job role shifting, like what excites me the most is it's going to give team members the ability to increase their value. And the way that they do that is if they're doing less tasks and they're spending more time focusing on strategy, they can increase their value as long as they're a strategic thinker. If they're doing less tasks and they can spend more time learning, they'll increase their value. And if they're doing less tasks and they could spend more time taking care of more customers at a high level, they increase their value. So if your mindset is just to like you enjoy super cumbersome, boring things because it just gets you through an 8-hour day and you're collecting a paycheck, AI is not going to be your friend. But if you're really trying to level up your skill set, this is going to allow you to buy back time and consistently educate yourself and be better. So for me, like that's what I get the most excited about. But I think what's going to happen though is people are going to have to take a step back and spend some time learning this and adopting it in their businesses before they can take a quantum leap forward.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, it can be, when I was certainly like learning new AI tools, it was daunting, right? Because it's brand new and unique, and um, it humbles you pretty quickly. Because here you come in, you think you know a lot, and then these certain AI tools show you where all your leaks are and all your cracks are. So I think no, they're great. I definitely recommend embracing them because they're not leaving anytime soon. They're here to stay, and I think it's you're spot on. Just taking the time to learn those tools and how to implement them for your business moving forward, I think is definitely going to benefit you. Cool, man. Anything else you want to share before we jet off?
Yeah, I was asked an interesting question the other day about AI specifically, especially since we're trying to adopt it at such a high level. And it was funny. It came from one of our leaders at BestLyfe Group, and he was like, "Hey, man, I had a really bad dream about this." And I'm like, "Okay, what was the dream?" He's like, "Well, I dreamt that we were relying on it so heavily that it just broke and like went down for a significant period of time. Like, what would we do?" And I'm like, "Well, clearly that would have an impact, but I'm sure they had these same questions about electricity back in the day and the internet when we first got it. So it's like we've got to have contingency plans." But I said, "Here's the reality: if we're really good at harnessing the power of AI, especially when it comes to prompting, that means we're really good at teaching. And if we're really good at teaching, because we're extremely specific in what we want for the output, we can go back to doing things the way that we did before. It's just going to be slower and more cumbersome." I'm like, so there is going to be an impact, but the reality is if you're harnessing AI, especially if you're on the back end and you're building the actual inputs, you can go back to doing things the way that you used to. You just may not be as efficient.
No, well said, bro. I think it's the electricity comparison I think is pretty funny because it's man, it's here to stay. What's crazy too, even telling you all the benefits of AI and not to spook you guys, but they basically they did a challenge where they brought two AI bots and had them start communicating with each other. And so the ultimate outcome after days and days of them communicating back and forth was the only solution was to end humanity and mankind. so, so if that doesn't scare anybody, I don't know what will.
Well, there was an AI that our team was talking about a year ago, and the whole point of it was how to end the world the fastest. and it was constantly just going through what currently exists and how to do so. And I'm like, well, that's terrifying. But I mean, just like with anything good, right? I mean, the internet, Facebook, all these things, every time somebody brings about something great that's supposed to help us, I mean, there's also, a negative side to it as well. And I think the last thing that I would like to share with small businesses specifically, if you do not start harnessing the power of technology, automation, and AI, and it doesn't have to be you as the business owner, but get somebody in there to do it, a consulting team, something. If you do not start using it, your competitor or competitors are going to, and it is going to allow them to far surpass you in everything, except for maybe the quality of the service that you do. But if they have all this additional time, they'll be able to invest in better people. So I wouldn't just sit on this and be like, it's going to go away in a couple of years. We'll be fine. No, it's time to step up your game if you want to step up your business.
That's funny you said that. I literally just did a post today about that, where it's like, if you're a business and you're not investing in marketing or AI and all these different things now, you're going to get left behind pretty soon. Because, even things like voice, like people using Google Alexa now to be like, hey, Alexa, find me the nearest plumber. And if you're not doing any marketing whatsoever, and you're just relying on word of mouth and referrals, well, what do you think is going to happen? People just aren't going to find you. They're not going to search for you. They're not going to use voice automation to locate you. So, yeah, I mean, there's no better time like the present. And if you've successfully relied on word of mouth and referrals, like, good for you, but you're going to get left in the dust here pretty soon.
Yeah, agreed. Well, I think that's all I got, brother, unless you got anything else.
That's it, man. I think it's been really cool to get your perspective on AI. Yeah, I love the tools that we're using. Obviously, there's so much more that we can be doing, that we're going to be doing. But no, man, excited.
Oh,
I think
you
it's
know
all
what?
learning.
We should tell them about the AI of me that knows how to speak Spanish.
Oh yeah, yeah. Why don't you share that? So
So,
like,
yeah, funny story. So for a little while now, I've known of AI that can, I mean, basically mimic you as long as it's trained, which training is very easy to do. And I ended up following some guy on YouTube and watching this training video of how to use this software. And he gets to the end and he's like, if you want to see this in real life, the last 13 minutes has all been AI of him. And I was like, no way. So I go and pay for this software, super inexpensive. And I go and I mean, I've got to train it. So I stand in front of the camera, you talk to it for a couple of minutes, and then all of a sudden, there you are. And all you had to do was feed it a script. And we had scripts and stuff from ads and whatnot. So I feed it the script from this ad and it replies back. Now, full transparency, it is not perfect. Like emphasis and words and that kind of stuff, you have to go back and add in. So, and that takes some time. But what was so funny was you could choose different languages that you wanted it to speak in as well. And there was like 150 different options. And a good portion of our team is in Latin or in Latin America. So I was like, man, like I took 5 years of Spanish and barely know any of it. I'll have this thing speak in Spanish and just let the team know that my Spanish is muy excelente and send this over to them. And so I did. And they all laughed. And I ended up showing it to my son, who's been on here later that day. I'm like, hey, man, do you know I can speak Spanish? And he's like, no, you can't. And I show him the video and he's like, oh my God, speak Spanish now. And I just started saying random words I know in Spanish. And he's like, this is crazy. And then I shared it to some friends that are just not familiar with the space, blew them away. They're like, this is wild. I'm like, yeah, and it's here to stay. So yeah, just a funny story about how it can be used. But man, there's so many things that AI can do to help you buy back your time and do things that you can leverage what you're really, really great at more effectively. So again, if you're not using it, I would challenge you just to do something as simple as open up a free ChatGPT account, play with it, for a couple of days and you'll see the power in it. And then it'll just go from there.
yeah, awesome, brother. And if you guys have any more questions, excuse me, if you have any more questions on like what AI tools to use, or maybe you're just unsure with your specific business, which ones would be applicable or that can really help you, message us. We're happy to, just have a quick like 10 to 15-minute chat and just sort of identify where your business is at, and what would be sort of great tools for you and how you could potentially save money and at the same time, your time. So thank you guys again for tuning in to Life by the Horns. Blake and Dustin, as always, if you could follow, like, and subscribe, we'd definitely appreciate it. And we'll catch you guys in the next episode. Peace.